There will be much pomp, ceremony and chatter to accompany the Irish Government assuming the presidency of the European Union in 2013. However, there will be no change in the disastrous and destructive austerity policy that is being ruthlessly imposed on the Irish and European working class, on middle and low-income workers, on the unemployed, pensioners, the poor and the young. Herr Schulz, as President of the European Parliament, effectively you are in a power-sharing arrangement between the Social Democrat and the Christian Democrat political parties. Throughout Europe, it is these parties, just like the Irish government of Fine Gael and Labour, that are carrying out the economic diktats of the financial markets, which dictate policies that have left 25 million EU citizens unemployed and threaten to turn the weaker capitalist economies, so-called peripheral states, back to third world conditions. And we now have the tragic irony that as the EU establishment boasts of being the most generous donor to the poorest countries on earth, features of that poverty, homelessness and even malnutrition reappear in Greece, a member state of the European Union, as a result of austerity. These policies are being driven by the markets, which dictate that the profits of the speculators, the bondholders and the bankers take precedence over hundreds of millions of ordinary citizens. And we have fine words today about democracy, but we live in an economic dictatorship of the financial markets. And the so-called Troika and the political parties of social democracy and Christian democracy are agents of these financiers, the speculators, and dictating that the people of Ireland, Spain, Portugal, Greece, and indeed others, should have transferred onto their shoulders the debts of the global bankers and have their economic lifeblood drained to rescue the diseased system that is casino capitalism. Have the political parties in Europe noted reports in the world financial press that while 25 million languish in unemployment, European big business corporations sit on €2 trillion of retained profits, which they refuse to invest to create productive employment, not being confident of sufficient profit? Or that globally, a report from the Tax Justice Report in the Guardian, British Guardian, that €16 trillion sits in offshore accounts by the global elite channeled there by the 10 biggest international banks, including the vampire squid Goldman Sachs, for the benefit of this elite only. Isn't it beyond time that a full frontal assault was made on this nauseating inequality? That we have, for example, not just a puny transaction tax, but a massive super tax on this wealth, so that it is channeled into job creation, major public infrastructure programs that would create millions of jobs, into research, into the transformation of services like health and education, and to end the draconian brutality and injustice of austerity. The injustice that saddles the Irish people with the bad gambling debts of Irish bankers and developers, and bankers in France, in Britain, in Germany and elsewhere, is taking billions from the pockets of ordinary people here and in the process wrecking the domestic economy with catastrophic results for jobs and services. Now, since the EU political establishment are the agents of the markets and austerity, ordinary people can only rely on their own power. And that is what our great historic Irish socialists, James Connolly and Jim Larkin, would tell them. That's what the great German socialists, Karl Liebknecht and Rosa Luxemburg, would tell them as well. 2013 marks not just the presidency by Ireland of the European Union, but the 100th anniversary of the Great Lockout, when the Dublin working class rose up in an historic and Herculean struggle against the employers, the elite of those days, to demand justice and a decent life.
Thank you, Deputy.
In conclusion, Count Corley, when the political establishment which represents the European capitalism descends on Ireland next year, as they will many times, they should be met with widespread mobilisations by the economic victims of the austerity they are imposing. Working class people will demand that the bailout of the bankers and the speculators is halted, that crippling austerity is halted, and we will join with the millions of workers in Spain, Portugal, in Greece and indeed in Germany, where it's not commonly known millions of workers languish in very low-waged situations, to demand a different Europe, not of the markets but of the people, a new Europe, a genuinely democratic Europe, a socialist Europe, where we can end thereby the obscenities of mass unemployment that you alluded to, of youth unemployment that you alluded to, and create a new and a decent life for all European citizens.
Thank you.